September 14th, 1982. A man wearing a U.S. Navy white service uniform breaks into the Newport News, Virginia home of the Perrone family. He bludgeons 30-year-old Jesse Perrone to death. Then sexually assaults 22-year-old Teresa, threatening to kill her 3 children if she makes a sound. Hours later, he makes his escape, leaving behind a horrific calling card.
She had been bitten all over her legs. They had a police photographer come and take photographs of the bite marks.
Kenny Murov was a young defense attorney in Newport News at the time.
She could not identify the man. She heard his voice. She knew he was a Caucasian male. She thought he was clean-shaven.
And he wore a sailor's uniform. Teresa Perrone was able to describe the insignia on the sleeve, 3 upside-down V's. Perrone also recalled seeing a sailor acting suspiciously outside her home the afternoon before the attack. And she worked with police to develop a composite sketch. The Perrone home was located just down the street from a shipyard where a Navy vessel, the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson, was docked. The police conducted an unusual search.
In the mess halls, they had these dentists, and they lined everybody up, and they kind of ran them through there.
At the time, Keith Harward was a 26-year-old seaman stationed on the Carl Vinson.
They looked in the mouths and looked to see, you know, what they were looking for, which at the time I had no clue what it was.
They were looking for teeth that matched the bite marks in the photographs of Teresa Perrone's legs. Several hundred sailors were singled out to give their dental impressions to the authorities, but Harward was excluded.
At the time, I had no clue. Didn't care because, you know, whatever they were doing didn't involve me.
Several months passed. The police were no closer to solving the crime, and the pressure to find a suspect was mounting. Then they got what they thought was a break. Another bite mark case. Keith Harward had a girlfriend named Gladys.
Gladys reported that she had a fight with a boyfriend, and in the course of making that report, she said he bit me. It was a true tussle.
Roy Lazarus was a defense attorney in Newport News.
It wasn't in the nature of a rape. He wasn't biting her on her thigh. It was just they're fighting with one another, and they apparently did that. But the nature of the bite was just simply in a defensive nature.
It was just like out of frustration, I bit her. It wasn't right to start with, but she was talked into going to the hospital by the police.
To the police, a bite was a bite, a savage and unusual act. They figured Harward must be their man.
That was it. There was no turning back. They were looking for an easy way out, and I turned out to be it.
The authorities sent a cast of Harward's teeth to a dental expert and rising star in the burgeoning field of bite mark analysis named Lowell Levine. Levine claimed that Harward's teeth matched the marks on Perrone's legs, and the police began building their case around him.
They kept telling me they had eyewitnesses and fingerprints, and I kept telling them they didn't know what the hell they talked about.
But there was an eyewitness.
A shipyard guard named Donald Wade. And Donald Wade observed somebody in the early morning hours of the crime, a Navy person coming through his gate with blood on his uniform.
The police showed Wade a series of photographs.
And he identified Keith as being the guy that came through the gate.
But the victim couldn't pick Keith out.
She couldn't identify me. She couldn't identify me as her rapist.
His mustache didn't line up with her recollection of a clean-shaven attacker, nor did his uniform insignia look like upside-down V's.
Keith was not of that rank. He had 3 stripes and not 3 inverted V's.
The investigation was a torturous process leading to what we call a direct indictment of Keith Harward.
Despite the weak and contradictory evidence, the case went to trial. Murov represented Harward, who testified in his own defense.
It's somewhat unusual for a defendant charged with this serious of a crime to testify, but from the first time I met him, Keith said he didn't commit this offense. So I had to respect his request. He made himself a real person, not some, evil ogre, so to speak. He humanized himself.
But the testimony of bitemark analysts was equally powerful. Lowell Levine told the jury that everybody has a set of teeth which are unique and individual, that with reasonable medical certainty, Mr. Harward caused the bite marks on the leg. A second expert echoed Levine's testimony. The defense challenged both experts with the fact that they based their statements on a single photograph.
Every other piece of evidence that was presented at the trial was exculpatory. There was no hair evidence, there was no fingerprint evidence, there was no blood evidence, there were no semen samples that implicated him.
In October 1983, Keith Harward awaited his fate.
I was numb. I didn't hear much of what's going on. I knew it was coming. I just felt it. You know you didn't do it, but everybody's saying you did do it.
In the case of first-degree capital murder, guilty.
What can you do?
First-degree rape,
What do you do?
guilty.
The jury sentenced him to life in prison.